Bobby Dylan, Ring Them Bells. This is a track sent in by Dylan K. This is a comeback record of sorts. Through the research, it looks as if he went through a string of unsuccessful albums and then hired a producer who had worked with U2 and Brian Eno to help the sound of his record, and it was a success. And some people seem to think that Oh Mercy was his sort of comeback to making great music once again. Let's check out the track. After this track, I will be covering a Dylan album next up. I'm going to pick one of his early records and try and move forward chronologically if I can and cover every single track in his albums. You guys can look forward to that. The Dylan fans will watch these things. Other than that, let's get into the music. Ring Them Bells, Bob Dylan. Let's break down these lyrics. Here we go. Once again with the organs on Oh Mercy.
Ring them bells, ye heathen from the city that dreams.
Church-like vibes.
Ring them bells from the sanctuaries across the valleys and streams. For the deep and the wide, and the world's on its side, and time is running backwards, and so is the bride.
It seems like his cadence switched up with time, where he became more melody-driven in his singing. I would go as far as to say some of the earlier tracks I've heard from his, in that very surrealist period, it wasn't even singing. He was doing some kind of hybrid between, I would even call it rapping, but I guess in those times it was called like scat talking or something along those lines. I'm not too sure what the terminology is, and singing. It's like a hybrid. It wasn't very melody driven. It was based upon the words and the rhythm in which he delivered the things he was saying. And with time, he turned more melodic. I really like the vibration in those organs on this one too.
Ring them bells, St. Peter, where the four winds blow. Ring them bells with an iron hand so the people will know. For it's rush hour now, on the wheel and the plow, and the sun is a-going down upon the sacred cow.
Wow, so much Bible and Christian terminology.
Ring them bells, sweet Martha, for the poor man's son. Ring them bells so the world will know that God is one. For the shepherd is asleep where the willows weep, and the mountains are filled with lost sheep.
Okay, this thing is full of religious imagery, Christian or not. I think it's obviously after the period where he was making a lot of Christian music, but upon the sacred cow is, I'm guessing, a reference to India and Hinduism. So he's got that sprinkled in there too. So it looks like he's kind of speaking on spirituality in general. He's also got this idea of ring them bells, which is obviously church-like imagery. And then you've also got in the third verse the idea of shepherds and sheep, which is obviously references to what I believe Jesus says, right? The Lord is my shepherd. So the idea that we're lost without direction, so that God is one, or the shepherd is asleep, where the willows weep and the mountains are filled with lost sheep. Interesting. So I guess he's alluding to the fact that maybe we live in a godless time. So like the shepherd is asleep, God isn't around at the moment. And so what you have is the mountains are filled with lost sheep. Very, very interesting imagery.
Ring them bells for the blind and the deaf. Ring them bells for all of us who are left. Ring them bells for the chosen few who will judge the many when the game is through. Ring them bells for the time that flies, for the child that cries when her innocence dies. Ring them bells, St. Catherine.
Okay, what do you think he means by this line here? Where he goes, ring them bells for all of us who are left. Ring them bells for the chosen few who will judge the many when the game is through. Now, you can take it in a couple of ways. When it says the chosen few, obviously you think of this being a positive thing for the people left, right? So they will judge the sinners maybe, but as a godly person, it's surely wrong to judge, who will judge the many when the game is through, which made me think it's the opposite. When like rapture, it's the sinners who are left and the people who live in accordance with God that go up to heaven. So I guess the people who are left, the chosen few who are left, are the judges. They've done wrong. They're judging, or maybe have judged the good people when they were around, and now those are the guys who are left. Not too sure. Those are kind of my interpretations on those lyrics. It is Dylan lyrics at the end of the day. Curious as to what he means by this. And then you've got the Saint Catherine reference there too.
From the top of the room, ring them from the fortress for the lilies that bloom. For the lines are long and the fighting is strong, and they're breaking down the distance between right and wrong.
Let's catch that last verse one more time.
The fortress, the room, Catherine from the top of the room.
Here we
When
go.
an innocent
Here we go.
ring them bells, Saint Catherine from the top of the room.
I thought so. It kind of sounds like it says top of the womb. Or does he actually mean room by this? I had to look that up, who Saint Catherine was exactly. She is a Christian saint known for her virginity as well. So that's why I thought it was interesting whether or not he was saying womb. That's why it made me look it up. From the top of the room or womb?
Bells, Saint Catherine from the top of the room.
Right? Womb.
Ring them from the fortress for the lilies that bloom. For the lines are long and the fighting is strong, and they're breaking down the distance between right and wrong.
Very peaceful instrumental. I really liked the instrumental in the background. It grew on me with time. I think the last verse is kind of alluding to the idea of maybe the end of days, where it is said in a lot of religions where like morals degrade, and I think that's what he's trying to say here. For the lilies that bloom, oh, the lines are long, perhaps suggesting resources are low, so people are waiting in lines, and the fighting is strong, so people are bickering, and they're breaking down the distance between right and wrong. So there's now gray areas, like people believe that maybe things that were once thought of as being completely bad aren't so bad anymore. Very interesting take on sort of, I would say, like a religious track, but done in that Dylan-esque way where you can also apply it in many different ways. It's brilliant as well, because very few times in one of these reactions I got to do some Googling as I listened to the track. So I looked up who Saint Catherine was, for example, which shows you his kind of ability to push and use a kind of wide range of references. I think a good example in hip hop for that is Andre 3000, who does that quite often to me and makes me kind of look things up. Maybe Kendrick Lamar too. All in all, really impactful song without being loud or maybe heightened in like the usual emotions of like anger or like lust or love in a song. It's kind of got a different vibe to it. It's quite peaceful, obviously a spiritual track. All in all, it's been such a cool kind of experience witnessing this man's journey through music, and obviously he's kind of documented his life. I've never been able to sit down on the channel and take an album in total, which I want to do as soon as possible. It should be very soon, within the next 2 weeks or so, and have a look at a full album, maybe in his pomp when he was at his best in his heyday in the 60s. Because I've done a lot of jumping around at this point, and I think it's about time, especially with the Dylan fans who tune in, to check out one of these albums in whole. I think it's only fair and really do a deep dive. So you guys can look forward to that. Other than that, I think it was a cool song. I don't think it's one of his best tracks, but again, the writing is just really great, and it's very peaceful kind of feeling it left me. Zen, you could say, hopeful, even though some of the lyrics were quite dark at times, you know, the idea of fighting and whatnot. I think the general idea is ring them bells, meaning like let his faith kind of override any fears he may have about what is happening in the world.